the ability to do that. Smaller governments do not. And then the last thing that we're particularly careful about, at least the entities that I represent, is are there privacy interests involved with third parties? Not communications with among governmental officials or with the general public, but are we exposing somebody to some unnecessary things? It's one thing to, and this is a public record, but it seems to me really not an appropriate thing. I think the public ought to know what the mayor makes. They ought to know what the chief of police makes. I'm not so sure it's any of their business what Joe the ditch digger makes. But that is a public record, and to me, the guy that's picking up that works on the trash truck he should, in my opinion, he should not be exposed to that. But he is. He is. That's a public record. He can protect his address. He can protect his phone number, but he can't protect his salary or his compensation. And there's ordinary folks out there that deserve some protection. Yes, ma'am. Do you have a question?
I just want to make sure when it's time to go, is it say something? I have so much to say.
If you give me about 2 more minutes, then I think that'll be that time. That's up to Mr. Marks at the other end. Okay?
I don't want to lose your point.
All right. Well, I'll be real quick. Okay? The other thing is, because of the nature of public records requests, they can also be used as a club. And I have witnessed that in some of the smaller governments, that someone knows they want the government to take a certain action. And what they do is they say, I'm going to make, if you don't do what I want, now they never quite that specific, but if you don't do what I want, I'm going to make this public records request, and you're going to have to spend a whole lot of money, or you're going to have to pay Mr. Arsenault to go defend something. And it can be used as a bully. And it's a wonderful tool, and so is a hammer. When I use a hammer to strike a nail to build something, that's a wonderful thing. When I use a hammer to hit Willie on the head, that's not a good thing, but it's the same hammer. Okay? And I have seen that occur it occurs more with smaller entities, because they have smaller budgets, but it is a problem. So there is another side to this that has nothing to do with the principle. It has to do with the practical aspects of compliance.
Ms. Jordan, you had a question, I believe, you wanted to ask Mr. Arsenault. Barbara, what would you like to ask?
No,
Jordan.
Jackson.
Excuse me.
I am Barbara Jackson, and it happens to be my birthday today.
Happy birthday.
I'm 63 today. From all that I think is being said, the purpose of the open government is because we want checks and balance. We want to be sure to have an oversight and accountability over our government. That is really what we want to see. And so we want the best approach for it, I think, and that's what you're saying, Mr. Arnold, that it can be misused. And I think that to get an avalanche of records would be problematic, because then you got to sort out all of this stuff and all of that. And so it needs to be targeted at a certain issue that you're looking for. So I think maybe it needs to be thought through, but certainly open government needs to happen yesterday. From what Mr. Bradford said and Mr. Stone,
Cipher.
No problem. I'll answer.
Wholeheartedly, 100% concur with their frustration about not being able to get information. And this gentleman, I had an example that I could have chimed in, but it went away from me, that I could have said, even though I don't even know what they were talking about. But when people have something to, if you want information and it's to their best interest, and they benefit from it, say for instance, their job security is threatened by them helping or providing information, they shut down and they're looking out for me. For me, it's me first, and I don't care if I'm frustrating you because it's what's in it for me and me first. So I'm not going to tell you what you need to know, and I'm not going to cooperate because I've got to answer for.
Barbara, that's what happened to the original program tonight. I'm afraid the library caved in to pressures
Exactly.
from at least one or more elected officials.
Exactly.
And fortunately, our public records request issued last night when we found out about this, we got the emails that proved it.
And may I ask, is Miss, I don't know her name, but people from the commissioner, are they here? Because
No, there are no commissioners here, and they were invited.
And is, in my understanding, that is what precipitated
Well,
the.
let me, we can't recreate history. We're here, and I want to go
What I'm
forward.
trying to understand is that if we're going to have an open government, whether it be because of the metropolitan, or whether because the mayor is, whether it be the dog park, whether it be the grizzly, whether it be a targeted issue, I'm saying that we really just, our goal is just accountability, and that's really all we were trying to do.
That's part of what the Sunshine Week program was all about.
And I'd like to speak to that for a little bit. There was a point that both Elliot and Willie both referred to, in that, I think sometimes a lot of, at least my impression, I think public officials are afraid to respond to a public records request because of how what they submit may be interpreted or used, or there is some fear of
Which is why
for
you have
what
lawyers.
or why, but at the same time, the easiest way to avoid a lot of that is to do a lot of the official business openly, is to do things in open settings, is to do things that are well documented, is to not have little private, they call it like a rolling quorum or whatever, like those type of things. The easiest way to avoid that is to not make that your practice, because then most of what you do is on record already, and like I say, you may not love what it all says all the time, but it's there, and you don't have to worry about it as much. I think one of the other things that could concern me a lot, because as a citizen, if I was requesting information from my government and they were taking, an exorbitant amount of time to get that to me, personally, I'm somebody who, I do think there's folks who are pretty corrupt, and I think there's folks who are pretty good. I think there's a mix of, and I think that's true in the world, not just in government, but just in the world. There are people who are out for themselves, and there are people who mean well, and there's a whole combination of people in between. But
out in the world, they're not taking my money.
There you go. No, I can always understand that, but I'm just saying, if I were to contact looking for a record, my mind doesn't initially go to they're trying to hide it, but what my mind would go to that is equally frustrating to me is, you should know where this is. Why don't you, if I'm asking for numbers or budgets or a contract or something like that, that is something that should be in place and readily accessible, and if it's not, that's a concern to me. It's not so much to me that they're trying to obfuscate it as it is maybe they should be more knowledgeable about where the reference points are, So there are multiple levels of concern that you could have. But at the end of the day, I think the easiest way to avoid is to take some of the practices of doing things in open settings where you know that it's documented already.
Marion, can I tell a quick story here? That's not a story. In the past 3 or 4 weeks, for reasons that some of us have made it our business to kind of try to figure out, the Caddo Commission has kind of suddenly risen to the top in terms of a lot of things going on that are very disturbing to a lot of people who do the kind of stuff that I do. I think a lot of folks feel like that happened relatively out of nowhere, like something very dramatic must have changed at the commission or something like that. And of course, that's not the case. The commission has an extraordinary blessing of a tremendous amount of public money. And what made that possible was the Haynesville Shale. Jeff, Tom, with Tom's history in the Shreveport city government, can imagine how these numbers would affect you. Right now, the Caddo Commission, documents that they gave me, has over $160 million in cash. You'd have to kind of let that number.
That's a lot.
Jeff knows what that
That's
means.
a whole, what we could do with that.
Remember that of the people in Caddo Parish, and we got 257,000 and change, only about 55,000 are out in the parish. 79% of the people in the parish are actually governed by the Shreveport City Council. The school board, of course, is parish-wide, Caddo Commission parish-wide, but the Caddo Commission, because of the Haynesville Shale and because of some lesser amounts of money in the Riverboat Gaming Fund and a predecessor to the Haynesville Shale money, that's kind of called the Reserve Trust Fund, but another one that's been there for longer was the Oil and Gas Fund. And what the commission staff so well explained to me is that only of the 19 cash funds that they have that have 160,000 plus in them, only 3 of those are truly discretionary funds. And discretionary doesn't mean they can just go in a meeting and say, let's do this. Discretionary means that in one case of those funds, you have to have 9 of the 12 members who agree. I mean, there are a lot of things that the public could find out about the spending even of that money. But that's $50 million in those 3 funds. The city of Shreveport probably ended fiscal 13 with, depending on which definition that you use, they ended fiscal 13 with between $1 million and $5 million in reserve.
I was going to say 4 point something.
4 point something million in reserve. That's 200,000 people versus this 56,000 people. It's 201 and 56. There is an embarrassment of riches at the Caddo Parish Commission. Here's where the Public Records Act comes in. There are 12 members, and by their very nature, and I can't judge them because I've not sat in those seats, their very nature is to hide all the details of that money. Why? Guess who wants the money? The city wants the money. Well, they don't have the right to hide it. But the point is, when there is, from the federal level, all the way down to the state level, all the way down to the parish level, then to the city level, a sudden relative absence of flowing money, and that's what's happened in the last 5 to 6 years, those entities with a lot of money are obviously looked at by the ones that don't have it. Okay? Now, neither of these really has a growing population, so that's not what this is about. This was about a lot of money falling on them from Haynesville Shale, which allowed them, quite frankly, if they kept their millage where it was and assessments kept going up like they do, They were just getting a flood of money that they didn't ever before have and really, quote unquote, don't need. Their instinct is to hide all that. They don't want anybody to know they got it. Now, I don't mean they get together as 12 people and plot that out. I mean that if you want to find out about it, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But here's the thing that I want to point out. When I first got ready to do this particular series of articles, which a lot of work has gone into it, I emailed one of the people, and I will not name any of these staff people because I know I'll get them in trouble. And I hate that, but I'm going to honor that. One of the staff people contacted me and said, we actually would like to meet with you. We're going to give you the information that you want, but we want to explain it to you. And I emailed back and I said, I'd love to sit down with you. I was given 2 hours with 3 of the top people at the Caddo Commission, some elected, some not. And I got to ask every question I wanted. And then I stayed in a free-flow email situation with some of the staff for several days in a row to get other things that I needed to know. That's the same Caddo Commission that took the Sunshine Week observance or look into Public Records Act and arbitrarily, and I mean angrily, killed it. That's the Caddo Commission too. There are people in every one of these government entities that understand why the public wants the information. They understand they're the ones that are going to catch all the you-know-what, trying to fight giving it to you. Most of them are perfectly willing to give you what you want. It's the elected officials that are the issue. And we got to understand that. And that's where the frustration comes from. They're the ones we're supposed to be able to replace. The public can't learn to replace them, though, if they don't know those kinds of details. So that's this problem that we're caught in. I know some of the pressures. I know some of the reasons that the commissioners that are on such a tear in the last few weeks, I know why they are. None of them are things that, in my opinion, honor the public. But my point is, it's not the whole commission. But until the Caddo Commission is pressured to come clean as a group on how much money they have and how they are continuing to keep the taxes as high as they do, until that gets done publicly, this situation with them is going to get worse. The city of Shreveport is now in such a need that they're actually reaching out to the public.
I want to read 2 phrases here.
Let me ask this question.
Yes, sir.
Just one question.
Yes, sir.
And it's to Elliot.
Yes, sir.
At Clifton Stars. Do you think that the commissioner should loan the city, loan Jeff some funds, since that funds is low? Do you think the commissioner?
You know what? What I'm learning, we learned first, Tom knows this very well, over 20 years ago, now in one case over 25 years ago, we desperately need city parish government here.
Like Baton Rouge.
East Baton Rouge and Lafayette. Lafayette's fighting theirs now. But here's the thing. We need to take all the backroom operations of government. I don't care what that is. I don't care if it's billing. I don't care if it's water and sewer. It all needs to be combined so we can cut the amount of money the city of Shreveport's having to spend on that particular staff, because it's about people. 76% of the cost of government, of the city government, is personnel.
I don't know the exact percentage, but I mean, obviously that is the most significant.
It's the highest.
The most significant cost for us, for sure. I don't know the exact number, but
If we did that, if we used one government, because we're not really growing our population, we've all got to keep that in mind. That's the backdrop for this. You're not going to have more taxpayers, you're going to have fewer taxpayers. So, if you can cut the apparatus that is government by 5%, all of a sudden, there is a huge, big sigh of relief for this new consolidated government. Why don't we do it? Because it's a political process. It's because 12 commissioners don't know how to get with 7 city council members and decide who's not going to serve. You got to have a single government. I hope that answered your question, but I think, yes, that's how it's got to be done.
Can I follow up on that real quick?
I wanted to address something. I wanted to kind of get back to the public records laws in the sense that there's a couple of things I wanted to address, and one of that was the abuses of public records laws. And sorry, Tom, I'm going to disagree with you that the public is the chief abuser of, or uses the law against government. Quite frankly, the government uses the law often against citizens, and the big abuses come, like, for instance, when I ask for public records and I get a $400,000 bill, when I know that that information is very easily retrievable through a series of keystrokes, and that the government, and that, like, for instance, and this does happen often with the city of Shreveport in particular, insists on giving me those records and paper so they can charge me whatever, $1 a copy or 25 cents a copy or whatever it is that they want to do. Those are the things that the government officials do to avoid giving records or to make asking for them retributive. Those are the obstacles that I encounter every time, or quite frankly, often when I ask. I have a public record right now where I ask for what I believe that the city of the police department is doing field interview cards. And I believe that this may be very similar to the stop and frisk that's going on in New York, and you realize that's a huge case there. And illegal practices by the police department. Those cards, I happen to know, are in a database because that's how the police are using them. They stop a suspect, or not a suspect. Wait a minute, let me back up and reframe that. They stop someone. They stop someone. He happens to be walking home from the bus because he gets home from his job late at night. And they stop him, and before they'll let him leave, they fill out one of these field interview cards. This person hasn't broken any laws. This person hasn't done anything wrong. They simply came across this police officer. And before they can leave, we have to fill out this card. Now, what that is used for is it's a suspect database. It's used to compile a database of potential suspects. I know it's in a database because that's how they get it. And a police officer has told me this. But do you know how the city gave me those records? Printed in paper, and you know
Printed
why?
all the cards?
Well,
printed it out. Or they'll print out the database, which is even more hilarious.
It needs to be demanded.
Well, this points to a very big flaw, and Elliot knows and would speak to this. This points to a big flaw in Louisiana's public records law, and that is that it does not compel governments to provide the record electronically when it's available electronically. That's a huge problem because that's where governments abuse the law.
Because they can do it,
because
not
they can
because
do it.
they should.
Right.
I'm going to give you a simple comparison to that. The city of Shreveport uses a data backup from all email that pass through their server. It's the most sophisticated email backup program that I know of. It's called ArcMail. It was developed by a local company. It will allow them to filter by any way, slice and dice it, research it by one key term or 100, and then sort it chronologically by sender, by whatever you want. It's a true database. We filed out a public records request on the choosing of the new director of the MPC with both the city, the parish, and the mayor. The parish, who does not have ArcMail, turned their records in to us digitally in a very simple file earlier this week. After discussing with Terry Scott the fact that they do have ArcMail, that they can do it digitally, and that she'll give it to us on a USB drive a week ago, I'm yet to see the records. And that's all I said you have to give me right now. Just give me those emails. the emails have not been
The
produced.
fact is that often we're willing, at least at the paper, and I think most citizens are, they're willing to negotiate if a request is, just crazy out there, or there's something that I didn't realize about the request that will create a real, create a problem. Often I have, said, okay, right, all right, and when I very specifically ask for a whole bunch of fields in a data request or any request, and they'll say, you know what, we can give you like all of this, it's real easy for us to retrieve, but this one little piece that you need or that you asked for, that's going to be a real problem for us. I'll say, you know what, okay, maybe that one isn't as important to me, so go ahead and forget that, or I may have another way to get that, and so go ahead and put it this way. So citizens, the media, people who are asking for public records are reasonable. They will listen to reason. Where the problem comes is that many public officials, particularly those out in the outer parishes, a lot of times I don't think that they're purposefully obfuscating. There's two things. They're ignorant of the law, and secondly, for some reason, they think they're a guardian of the record. They don't realize that it's not their record, it's actually mine, it's actually yours. It's our record. And so that's part of the problem. Now, with certain governments, it is obfuscation. They are actively trying to keep you from getting that record, or they're going to make it as painful as possible for you. Now, here's why I get to know that garbage man's salary, because I'm paying for it. You're paying for it. That's why I get to know. I don't get to know his performance evaluation. I don't get to know his address. I don't get to know the last time that they disciplined him. But I get to know it because I'm paying for it. And two examples why this is important. The Bossier Sheriff, through some work that we did, and we knew that there were people that were being grossly overpaid. Because of that, the Bossier Sheriff looked at those and agreed that those salaries were way too much, and he reduced those salaries. People were getting salaries that were so out of line with what their job, they were like 20 or 30,000 because the previous sheriff had pumped up all the salaries. Same thing happened with Walter Lee. Walter Lee was giving himself bonuses, that type of stuff. Other people on his staff were also getting bonuses. We wouldn't have known that if Vicki Wellborn hadn't gone and asked for that information and it hadn't been available, because that's why I get to know his salary, because if I don't know it, I can't tell if my money is being spent properly.
Thank you. That's important. I do want to wrap this up some. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of money, just based on following up with what Mr. Stonecipher said, I'm getting the sense that the reason the commission backed out of this forum is that because there is this huge surplus and the city certainly is in need, and they didn't want to run the risk of having anyone say, hey, you're sitting on all this money. I mean, you're sitting here in this area, you're sitting on all this money. We need the money. So, at this point, why should we even have to ask? Because it's not as if Cattle Parish is put across the state.
Well, and if I could clarify just real quick, I think when Elliot was making some comments as an example, he said, who wants it, these guys, and I mean, sure, we would be happy to have that money, but I want to clarify that we are not after that money. Like, we realize that is their money. We get that. No, I don't think it was either. I don't think that's how he meant it, but I do just want to make sure that I make that clear. But I think, and I think there is a frustration in the public about that.
Let me add this. And it all sort of connects. Elected officials who has no confidence in their ability to govern are threatened. Everything scares them, If you have confidence in your ability to govern, you are like, and you have no ulterior motives in trying to do something that's not right. You are transparent. You say, bring it on. I mean, look at me. I don't, If you don't have the ability I wrote an article about a month ago regarding the Shreveport mayor's election, and I said our best and brightest will not be on the ballot in the fall. Because I contend again that the conditions of Shreveport and Caddo Parish, we didn't get here with our best and brightest in public office. If we are, then it's an indictment on Caddo and Shreveport. Now, in regards to monies that, and it's all, I'm gonna tie it all together, monies that Caddo Parish has in its coffin, I would say the reason the money is there, because listen, the parish in the city needs more development, more service. So money shouldn't be laying in nowhere being hid. Money should be utilized. But we got people in public office who don't have the capacity to manage the type of money that we're talking about here. So what do? They hide it. You know, if you are a progressive thinker, if you have confidence in your ability, you're going to look at the needs of Caddo Parish and you're going to apply those funds to help Caddo Parish. So, if you don't have confidence in your judgment and governing, and you don't want to, now listen, the police department, there's some entities that, you know, they're going to manufacture a way to hide stuff because they don't want the liability of what may be exposed. So they're going to use every layer they can to hide that. But I'm just saying in a generic way, and there's every level of government, you know, whether it's federal, state, okay, I'm saying most of our issues are local, you know, and that how our local governments have become so uncitizen friendly because they are threatened by everything that comes their way, and their first instinct is to hide, and our first instinct after they want to hide is to be suspicious. Why are you acting this way? You know, so there must be something out there. No, but I'm just saying that therein lies the accountability issue, in that the citizens ain't participating, and that is elections themselves are problem solvers. You know, you got a problem, every 4 years you have an opportunity to correct that problem. Okay? But we don't respond that way, you know. And most of our elected officials is not worried about that part, but I'm still saying that our best and brightest have been deterred from seeking public office. And what we have now in Caddo and Shreveport, and I'm not calling any names, it's not everybody, it's not across the board, but I think we have reached a certain degree of parity to where our leadership will not insert themselves to try to be proactive and avoiding the suspicion that goes along with their governing, and to be willing and very honest and candid and cooperating with anybody who seeks information from the very public bodies that the citizens are responsible for. They work for us.
Yes, ma'am. You have a question?
My name is Brenda O'Rourke, and thank you for coming in. Giving me something else to be upset about. I think it's very interesting, this $160 million. And Elliot, you said that we must have a little over 200,000 people in the city and 59,000 out in the parish. My question is, does the need for the parish or the need for the city overrule the need for the parish? Because there are more people in the city, and the coffers are better in the parish. And maybe this is a question for you, Tom Marciano, but how long can that money sit there, or does it have to be spent by a certain time, or is there any kind of legality there? And then
backyard.
Can it be transferred into a fund where the city can use it where it so desperately needs it?
Let me try to keep this short, and then Tom may want to add to this. Brenda, thanks for asking the question, because you get to what I have learned in doing this kind of analysis for a long time. You're getting to what really matters. What do we compare our level of taxation with? How would any parish, any city within a parish, figure out if there's something just plain old not equal? I mean, what if something's out of whack? What we have here is completely out of whack. And let me just give you the broad stroke numbers. Caddo Parish property owners who live in Shreveport pay the highest property tax millage in the state. I don't know how many of you look at that sheet that you get from the assessor's office, but depending on where you are and whether you're paying a fire district bond and a water district thing here, you can pay upwards of 180 mills in property taxes. The ones for the school board and the parish are subject to the homestead exemption. The ones in the city are not. The city's millage for our population and land area, which is a big deal. How far did we extend city services that we now have to maintain? The Shreveport millage is not onerous. Okay? It's just not. And they're kind of shut off from doing anything about it because the school board's millage is completely out of whack. I mean, it's 76, 78 mills now, which puts it as number one in the state, except for Zachary, which is a school district that has 5 schools in it. The Caddo Commission millage is way too high, given that they had the Haynesville Shale windfall. Remember, that could have been used in a way that you, in essence, could have lowered that millage about 38 mills, depending on whether you're in the city or not. Could be 34. That actually could have come down because of the windfall, so Shreveport could do things like fixing these incredible problems that we have with water and sewer. Those rates are going to go up instead of us being able to get at it some other way. And oh, by the way, let me add this. While we're paying these taxes that are way too high compared to anybody else who has the same basic government in Louisiana, only about 1/3 of us pay those taxes, those property taxes. 2/3 don't. If you're the 2/3 and you can go vote on raising the taxes on the 1/3, what do? And here's my point. When the Caddo Parish Commission loses a millage last October, 1.75 mills, when they lost that, the voters told them no. Now they're going to put it back on the ballot on May 3rd. What they're going to do is vote at $144,000 cost for every election. They're going to vote until we get it right. Okay? Why? Do they need the 1.75 mills? No. Not by any analysis I can imagine do they need the 1.75 mills. But when government gets it, they never, ever let it go. We in this place don't have the wherewithal as a citizenry to help the city of Shreveport get some of the millage that, frankly, the commission doesn't need. Nor do we have the wherewithal to get the Caddo Parish School Board to close upwards of 20 schools. That's how many they ought to be closing.
That have been recommended being closed.
That would cut maintenance and operation that would allow that millage to come down significantly. We're paying plenty of tax, and we can't get our head around how to do it right. And that would take the city council getting with the school board, getting with the Caddo Parish Commission. If we ever have that meeting, I just want the concessions.
I want to round this up, and I want to thank everyone who participated. Essentially, I want to end with the email that was the reason the library backed out. I've given all this to the media. I'll let anyone who wants this. It is from Caddo Commissioner Ken Epperson Sr. You need to cancel and reschedule this. Who set the agenda, and why are all those radical critics of government the only ones on board? And I'm going to end with this last. In my opinion, there needs to be a dialogue on positive contributions of local elected officials on behalf of our citizens. In other words, don't look at anything wrong, i.e. sunshine and open government. Let's pat ourselves on the back. So I encourage the library to have one of those, and I hope they do it during the political season and some people come ask some hard questions. I want to thank each of you for coming. If anyone wants to stay around from the panel and answer questions, it was my pleasure to help put this on. I think the public deserves the right to hear. I understand some media will cover this, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you for doing it. Marion did this. He's the reason this happened. Marion just picked up the ball and ran with it. We thank you.
If anyone wants to read this, Mr. Epperson's email is right.
Is it, where is that? I can pull it up.
Hey, Allison.
I mean, do you have it on your forward now?
It's on forward now, some of it, but I'll send you access to every email they have.
I should just give those links.
You can give it to Jim. Have a copy. What I'm going to do, Willie, is I will share with you. So you predict some very good things.
You know what? I didn't think about that in this business.
I'm going to share the whole box of emails with you. And if you want to share it with anyone, anyone you want, WBradford50@cs.com. Yes, sir.
Did you receive
I have all of them.
all the other commissioners?
No. Two commissioners last year. Stephanie Lee and Evans. Would you like to read all the emails?
No.
Everything you got over 1,000 emails about this.
Their premise of complaining was misguided. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I guess they funded Kettle Library, but I'm saying their premise. Listen, it had nothing to do with bashing.
Actually, they don't fund the library. The library has their own millage.
But probably they didn't get the information. But hopefully we can bring all three the city.
It's embarrassing that 24 hours before this happened.
Yeah, it was last night. Yesterday evening,
I called and I said, I will rent the hall for $600. I want the people to have the right to do it.
I enjoyed the city. Hopefully.
Sure, it's all yours. Would anyone else like one? I will send you all of them if you want. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me. You know how to reach me on Facebook.